Greetings, everyone. I am Tim Anderson, aka Renfail, and I'm joined by.
Joey. Idradlore. It's not that hard, people. Idradlore.
All right, so tonight we're going to be brainstorming. This is the second official brainstorming video that we're sharing with people on YouTube for the Project Dramond Patreon project that we have going on, which is a multi-part project that is part tabletop world, tabletop campaign, and campaign modules, along with a book series in the vein of Chronicles of Dragonlance and a single-player adventure game, point-and-click adventure game, kind of like the old King's Quest game, Heroes Quest game, Space Quest, all those things. Tonight we're going to be talking, if we have time, we'll do more, but we're going to be starting off talking about the finalization of plans for the adventure game so that Joey can go forth and start working on that full time. And beyond that, if we have time, we'll talk about some other stuff. If you have not already done so, I would suggest you check the links below to go to the Patreon page and find out all of the information about this project. Also, you can check here on YouTube the Project Dramond playlist, which has a bunch of previous videos. We have the reveal video from March 1st, other brainstorming videos, map making videos, the races overview, got a bunch of stuff, and we're doing multiple videos per week through YouTube. There's multiple posts per week over on Patreon and daily updates over on TikTok. All of the links for all of these things can be found below. So get on over there, subscribe, get signed up, join us in this adventure. And if you haven't already done so, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon to get updates for when we go live with new content. So before we talk about the story elements that you sent me over um, the other night, whenever you did that, I found that post on WhatsApp. I wanted to go over here and talk about this King's Quest 6 walkthrough video. So if you can pull that up, Joey,
hmm
um, go to the 6 minute 33 second mark is where we're going to start basically. And I'm going to bring that up for people.
6 minute and 30 seconds.
Yeah, somewhere around there. He's on a beach.
Okay.
So I went through and I watched this video today. And just using this as a rough, kind of an example to look at, there's around 70 scenes in the game
Yep.
and probably a dozen. I didn't actually mark it down. I was just roughly counting in my head as it went along. There's around 70 scenes in the game and around say 15 cut scenes, which are all everything is fixed. So one of
hmm
the components of these old adventure games is that they always have a fixed camera. So wherever the camera is fixed in that environment, it's right there. That's the static camera, and then the character moves within that scene, but you don't actually get to pan the camera around and everything else, which potentially makes it simpler for design
Yep.
things. But the other thing to think about too is what I was really looking at when I went through this video today was I wanted to talk about with you. I wanted to talk about size of the scenes because I know
Yep.
previously when we were working on Saga of Lucimia and working on the MMORPG, obviously we're building scenes that are, you know, 1.5 kilometers, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers. Um, if you look at
These
the
are like
majority of,
these. These are like 100 feet, maybe.
yeah, maybe 100 feet squared, and you have
Yep.
you have the stuff in the foreground, which is what he's primarily interacting like. But if you push play
hmm
and let's go to the next scene, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit here. The next scene is, oh,
Castle.
he ran right through it. No, the next scene actually is right around 6:58 or so. The
Oh,
next
at the
scene
crossroads.
is a
Yeah.
crossroads with a tree. And again, that's like a 100 square feet, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, Ignore the
So you can go
castle
to
for a minute.
yeah.
Yeah,
You can go to the city, the one or the castle. Yeah.
I'm gonna ignore the castle for a minute, and we're gonna go into town. So I gotta find the marker for that real quick. All right. So come into 10:27, 10 minutes 27 seconds. And he's in town now, and there's two shops. There's a pawn shop and a bookshop, and that's it.
Yep.
That's literally the town. And then you go beyond that, and there's a house. But all of these scenes are like maximum. Well, it depends. Like this one, the perspective
The
has
the
changed.
as I say, the town scene was a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
But like if you
because
go in when he goes in the store, you're looking at the size of a store,
yes,
obviously.
so 50 feet by 30 feet or something. So I was thinking about that earlier. There's a scene in here, I forget where it's at now. He goes to another island, and let me see if I can find it real quick. I forgot to mark it down when I was there. It doesn't really matter at this point. Well, here's a good example. Go to the 30-minute 21-second mark. It's not the scene I was looking for, but this is a scene. It's a swamp scene, right? So in the background, you see four trees
Hmm.
and then a big tree in the front. So there's literally only five trees in this scene, some
Hmm.
cattails, some bushes, and a fallen log. So I was looking at this going, from a world building perspective, especially if we're dealing with a fixed camera that's not going to move around, so you only get to see the scene from one angle. This is
Hmm.
going to make the world building fairly straightforward because you're going to be going in and going, okay, I need a
Yep.
docks scene. I need a dock, a boat, a beach, and a trail
And
that
then
leads off in the
and then
distance.
and then some background stuff.
That's some
Yep.
background stuff, which is not you're
So
not interacting with.
yeah, I had envisioned doing a fixed camera anyways,
Good,
but
perfect.
maybe more of like I'd like to kind of rotate it a little bit, like kind of, because the assets we're going to be using are 3D assets,
Hmm.
you know. So if we can kind of just not straight up like dungeon crawler type where it's up, but kind of just up a little bit to where you're getting more of that kind of more depth perception kind of view.
Sure,
But that's
and it
that's about the
can
size of the scene anyways. But
right,
I was thinking,
and also that camera angle can change depending on
sure.
the scene. Because one of
Yeah.
the things they do here is they mix the scenes with cut scenes, and the cut scenes are always it's literally a 2D panel, and there's just something going on, and there might be some animation of the lips,
Yes.
but it's
Yeah,
just
I like when you're talking, like it's got your character profile up here, in the chat and everything.
so. I think from a scene building perspective, I'd say let's start with 100 feet, 100 feet
Something
squared,
like that.
something like that, because it keeps it
For
relatively
if
small.
if we're in a scene or like a nature scene, like if we're in a shop or something like that, we have to take into consideration the size of the shop,
Yes,
obviously, or like a tavern, because I mean I'm pretty sure we're gonna have at least a couple of tavern scenes.
yes,
Um, I mean we can talk about that later, but we are gonna have interior scenes as well too.
yes. So I thought this, if you, whenever you get a chance to sit down and watch this, I just sent this to you the other day. I went through and watched the whole thing today. The other thing I want to talk about, and this is for the people who are watching this video as well. The idea, and I'll go ahead and close this window down so that people aren't having to see that. Um, One of the things that we were talking about earlier, and I think we mentioned it in the Patreon overview, is that I don't think it's in the Patreon overview. I think it was in the draft, and I took it out because I knew I was going to be explaining it in the video. We're not talking about creating a 40-hour campaign for this first adventure game. If you look at this, the person who did this, it's not a speed run. They did the whole game. It's not cranked up or anything like that. And it's a 2 hour and 20-minute video. So it took them 2 hours and 20 minutes to go through the whole game from start to finish. Now that was obviously them knowing everything and doing everything in exactly the correct order without having to figure things out. When I played this game as a teenager, um, this was the first King's Quest game that I played. And when I played this as a teenager, it took me, and granted, I didn't game all the time like I do these days, but the memories that I have was this was something that took 2 or 3 months for my friend and I to go through. But we weren't playing it all the time. We were only playing a couple days a week. Um, and our parents were very strict about how much time we were allowed to play. So you might get an hour at the computer. So, I mean, if you're looking at it that way, it probably took us 20 hours maybe to go through this whole thing from start to finish when we didn't know anything and we were having to figure out the quest, and maybe 30 hours at max, but like 20 hours would be my rough estimate. And so what Joey and I were thinking of doing is especially because we're considering this first game as the first in a series. So we're thinking of this as a chapter in an ongoing adventure. Because if this proves to be something that the people like and it's successful and people are supporting us via Patreon and we get good sales once we release it commercially, then our goal is to we're going to come back in and we're going to do a second one. And the second one's going to add a little bit of complexity to it. So the idea for this first game is that it's going to be completely just like King's Quest. There's no combat in King's Quest. It is a puzzle based narrative game. That's what this game is, King's Quest 6, and that's what we're looking at creating is a puzzle based narrative game. So we're thinking a roughly 10-hour game, which if someone did it on a speed run or did it, knowing everything they need to do, hour and a half maybe to go through everything from start to finish. But the idea is that would give people a 10 to 15-hour experience, and then we go from there and we make the next one, and the next one perhaps we add some additional classes to it, like what Quest for Glory did, where they had, a fighter mage and a thief. Um, and then Quest for Glory also had basic combat in it, so we might look at adding combat to the next one, or we might just keep it puzzle narrative based. We don't know yet. It depends on popularity, how much we get, how much support we get through Patreon, what it does commercially, and what people want to see out of the second one. But the idea is that we're making a very simple quest based narrative single player game. I just wanted to make sure that we get that out there so everybody understands what we're building, that we're not trying to build this, groundbreaking genre shaking next iteration of the single player campaign. No. No. We're doing something very simple in the Unity engine. Excuse me, Unreal. I said Unity by accident because we've been using Unity for so long. We are doing this in the Unreal engine, and we're definitely, absolutely using prepackaged assets and packs and everything else. Not ashamed to admit that. That's what the store is there for, to allow folks like us to get fun, simple products up and going for people to enjoy.
We'll customize stuff. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, yeah, but we're starting with, base packages. All right. So scene size, everything else,
Something like that. Yeah.
something like that. We do need to talk about. So I'm going to read what you wrote me,
Oh God.
and then
That was literally a thought that I had at like 3:30 in the morning. I was like, when I wake up at 5, I gotta just write it down so that I don't
no,
forget it
that's
because I
that's
thought
fine because
it's a pretty decent idea.
there's some nuggets in here, but I think we're going to go with something different. But there are some nuggets here, and I
Sure.
want I want to share people, I want to share with people everything, napkin sketches and all. So
Cool.
when we have 3:30 a.m. thoughts, this is what you get access to when you follow these videos, and this is the kind of stuff you get access to over in the Patreon page as well. So don't forget to subscribe to the Patreon page.
For 3 a.m. morning concepts
Yes, and napkin sketches and my stick figures, which are
and
cool,
bedhead.
but yeah, and my bedhead bedbit videos. All right, adventure game idea. Time frame is when the race of humans are in the midst of chaos, destroying their environment. Story: the humans are leaderless as their king left 20 years ago to hunt down the last known legendary dragon. Please remember legendary dragon because we're going to come back to that later. Rumor has it that the king found the dragon and stuck his sword, the sword of power, being passed down. The sword alone holds the power to rule the human race. That idea, no. But other things, yes. It was forged by whatever gods and given to some human who was chosen to rule until he passed on the sword. Maybe this could be an idea for all the races. The gods forged a main weapon for each race with the power to rule their own? Don't know. Anyways, so the human king takes off to hunt this dragon, finds the dragon, jams his sword in the dragon somewhere, and rumor is that the sword is still in the dragon. Also, write that down. The king never returned. Many have went looking, and they too have never returned. Main player is some nobody. That's the story. The hunt for the sword can literally be the end of the game. That also is staying. That's a good idea. Finding the dragon with a sword stuck in it or something. Maybe the dragon's dead, so you just walk up and take the sword out. Maybe the dragon is alive, and you have to bargain with it, and he lets you take the sword to relieve the years of agony. Who knows? But the end should be you gaining the sword, and with the sword, the power to rule from nobody to king. Gameplay: starting as some peasant, following rumors and riddles and puzzles and clues and maps, disabling traps, following the footsteps of the lost king to find the sword, treasure chests to crap open. Chests will have gold or whatever, which could be used to buy cosmetics. And that's as far as I've gotten for an idea so far. Don't know. So I can say the things I liked about that is I really definitely like the idea of the dragon corpse with a sword stuck in it And that led me to thinking about uh, the world map, which I'm going to go open up now, and how we can have the end of this be on the island in the middle where that ancient volcano and crater
Ah.
and the ruins and everything are. So like maybe the last half of the game is set entirely on that island, and he has to figure out how to. So I'm gonna open this map so that people can see what I'm talking about. So this is the map. So if you look at this version of the map here, let me go into the selection tool. Here, there is an impact crater here. There's this ruined city in the mouth of the cove here, in the mouth of this bay, and then up in here is the smoldering ruins of this volcano that has been smoldering for, 1,000 years or whatever. It's never stopped smoldering. So I'm thinking that whatever we do with the game, I'm thinking the last half of the game could be spent entirely on this island, getting to the ruins, figuring out how to get through the ruins, getting through the wilderness, and getting to the mountains where he finds a cave, where he finds the remnants of a dragon, and there's a sword of power, which doesn't necessarily have to. I don't like the idea of it being the king or anything like that, but
Sure.
the idea that it is a sword of power, and at the end of the game, he pulls the sword from the dragon's corpse and he becomes the hero, right? And I do also like the idea of him going on this journey from peasant to hero because that sets up the next chapter of the game. Because I was thinking of the Quest for Glory games. So you want to be a hero. That was literally the name of the first game. And so I think that's a great segue as you end the first game of having gone from peasant to hero. Then when you start the next game, the story can pick up somewhere along the lines of you got this sort of power, you return to town, you become known as this adventurer, and maybe it picks up like a year after that where you've actually gone out and established a little bit of a reputation for yourself and now you're being offered these other gigs and that's when you get into the combat and everything else. So
Yes.
I'm already eh,
Yes.
thinking ahead, man.
Yes. Because
So
that's. I was literally trying to explain why there would be no combat in the first chapter and how to transition into the second. That's how the idea started. It's like, okay, you don't have a weapon. That's why you don't have a combat.
yeah.
Then you get a weapon. Boom. There you go.
Now the first half of the game is going to be I haven't finished finalizing all the cities yet. Let me move this over here to the side
Sure.
so that I can see my map. I did add a city today, but there's one of the major port cities for the humans, which is here on the map. You haven't seen. I put a screenshot up in the Project Dramond Discord, so you can check the screenshot there, Joey. Because I added the Wood Elf and Sea Elf forests today, and also the first of the human cities in the northern section of that peninsula on the edge of the forest.
Aha! Yeah, I saw this somewhere.
Some towers.
Maybe I.
There's some towers around it anyway. Um, but there's probably going to be one just west of there. There's another alcove, or two, and then there's a little tiny strip of mountains. I'm probably going to put outposts or small cities along the coast for the humans, like 3 or 4 cities. And basically, we'll be able to start our main character off in one of these little towns, these little coastal towns. And maybe he's like the blacksmith's apprentice or something in town. He's somebody's servant, and we're gonna have to come up with a story that gets him from the town to the like. Why does he get sent to the island? Like, what's going on? Like, we have to come up with a story for that. But I think in terms of getting you going on scene building, we don't necessarily need to have the story ironed out just yet. In the
No.
sense that you could start creating city scenes that we can just fill in. Like we know we're excuse me, we know we're gonna need a
Well,
dock.
that's what I say. We need to have like a flow chart. Like you're gonna go from here to here to here to here to here to
Yes.
here. So I need 2 city scenes, a tavern scene, 3 nature scenes, a mountain scene. So on and so forth.
Yeah, but for now, just to get going before we get
Yep.
that flow chart, we know we're gonna want at least one tavern. We know we're
Yep.
gonna want at least one bookstore because he's going to
Yep.
have to go somewhere to research the lore
Oh,
and find the
oh,
maps and everything.
absolutely.
And then
Yeah.
we're going to need a general store where he can get his goods and sell his goods. So you
Hmm.
can get going right away by building 3 interiors. Then we know for sure we're going to need like a dock that has 4 or 5 ships on it, and whether or not he robs a ship or pays for passage, we'll figure that out later. But we need a dock with some ships on it, and then we probably need some city street scenes, which could be
Sure.
transition scenes. I don't know, but just to get you going, you know that we need a tavern interior, a bookstore interior, and a general store interior. So
Absolutely.
that's enough to just get you going right there, and then you and I can, in whatever is the next brainstorming episode, we can sit down and come up with um, the actual story idea and flowchart. Um, because I don't, and also I do want to set it in I want to set it in the current times,
Okay.
which gives us a reason why he's not, why he doesn't have any magic powers. He's just a
Yep.
normal, everyday person. And then in the course of his running around the city, he will probably meet at least one. He'll meet a dwarf. We'll have a dwarf NPC. We can have an elf, a wood elf NPC, probably a brownie NPC in there, but the rest would be humans. Um, Maybe a half elf thrown in there for good measure. Um, and I think, yeah, that's a good start. What I don't know yet is obviously we want him to start as a nobody. I guess we could brainstorm that since we're sitting here. Maybe get some rough ideas wrapped around it. Um, the concept of Quest for Glory was that you were recently as if I remember correctly, you were recently graduated from the Adventurers School, and you went to Spielberg because that was where you got told to go talk to the Adventurers Guild because they were having problems with like the Duke's daughter got kidnapped or something.
It's
Um,
been a long time, but something like that. Yeah.
yeah, I don't. It's been a long time since I played it as well. Um, but that's you've kind of already established. Oh, you know what we could do? We could literally. I just backtracked from that. We could literally have this guy be doing the prerequisite to that. Like this first game could all about him joining the Adventurers Guild, and this is the quest they send him on.
They're like, go find this sword of power that is
Yeah,
rumored to be.
yeah. Go or just your quest is to go to the island and bring us back a magical item. Like because I've been watching, on
Oh,
TikTok.
okay. So then he goes and he researches and he hears about this sword. So he's like, oh, okay, I'll go look for this. Okay.
Yeah, because on TikTok, I've been watching all these people who do these. They have these scenes set up in their basement or whatever, and it's like they're the tavern keeper and they have a
Sure.
tavern and they play the NPC and they like give quests to their watchers, to their viewers and stuff. And so that got me thinking about well, that sounds kind of like a cool little idea. And then that just popped into my head when we were sitting here thinking about this. So this could literally be the whole scenario is that he is a nobody. He's a blacksmith's apprentice, orphaned, parents, you know, dad died when he was very young. Mom didn't have any money, so she apprenticed him to the local blacksmith because he can earn a trade and she doesn't have to take care of him because she doesn't have enough money to feed 2 mouths. Mom dies, he's left alone, orphaned, the son of this. I don't know, maybe the guy's nice, maybe the guy's not so nice. We can figure that out later, but he's the blacksmith's apprentice. That could be one of the options. Um, and maybe in secret, he's always wanted to be more than that, and his maybe he had a good relationship with his mom even though she couldn't afford him to feed him, and so in his spare time she taught him how to read, so he knows how to read. So he's an educated blacksmith's apprentice. He could be something else. I don't know if you have other ideas of what he
Could be
could be.
he could be a scholar. He's a monk. That's how he knows about this sword. Is he's read so many books.
Well, that's why I was going with the as an
Yeah.
educated, maybe that's his escapism is he hates being a blacksmith's apprentice. So
So he
this
reads
is
books.
digging deep into my past.
Oh yeah.
I hated growing up on the farm, and so my escape was fantasy novels. So whatever his
So he goes out.
background is,
He reads myths and
he
legends and
reads myths and legends, and that's his escape. Is like maybe one day I can be the adventurer and I can escape this hell that I'm
Yep.
living in. And then I don't know how yet, but I like the idea of that route. He's an apprentice of somebody who knows how to read, and so in his spare time, that's what he does. Is he, anytime he's spare time, he goes into the bookstore, and the bookstore owner is a nice old man who lets him read the books for free. And in
Sure.
exchange, maybe he sweeps the floor or
Just
something,
sweep the floor. Yep.
and that could be because that was something they did in Quest for Goya. You could go to the castle, go to the stables, and you
And
could
shovel shit.
sweep and shovel shit, and you gained stamina points for that. But in this game, I'm thinking, you might not gain any stamina points, but it's just a fun little RP activity. It's like, oh, you're gonna read a book and then you have to sweep the floor and then you go. But that's maybe how he comes up with these ideas for, I want to be an adventurer, and then maybe that's what happens is adventurers come into the blacksmith's shop one day to get some armor repaired, and he's like, honest, real adventures, oh my god, and he's like, maybe they he's cleaning the armor or something, and he picks up the sword and he like no one's watching and he's like hata, and he's playing around with the sword, and maybe the leader of the adventure party, and I'm thinking Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade when the guy takes
Yeah.
the hat and puts it on Indiana Jones, and when he comes up again, now he's old Indiana Jones on the boat, got the hat, I'm the adventurer. But I'm thinking the guy comes around the corner, sees him playing with the sword, and goes, oh, you've got aspirations. Well, I tell you what, kid, if the day ever comes, take this, whatever, gives him a coin, says, take this coin to the Adventurers Guild, and they'll set you on your path. And that becomes, I'm on a roll tonight, man.
I like it. I honestly say I'm just listening.
I'm
I
on a
like it.
roll. Um, uh, so yeah, that could be
That could be the start of it
the
all.
start of it all. And then he goes to the Adventurers Guild, gives them the coin. They kind of laugh at him because he's a kid, and they're like, yeah,
Go bring us some magical
bring us a
item.
magical item. That's your initiation, but it's up to you to figure it out. And so he's been reading all these myths and lores and legends. So then he goes running back to the bookstore and he's like, Mr. Bookstore owner, like, I've been accepted into the Adventurers Guild. Well, anyway, maybe not accepted, but they gave me this quest and I have to find a magical item. And that leads him to,
Magical item? Hmm. Maybe you should try Myths and Legends Chapter 4, Volume 7.
yeah, and so he goes and reads a bunch of books and spends, a week or so reading books until he comes across this legend of um, this sword that is supposedly buried with the dragon on the island, and this is the island that every single day that he's been alive, he sees it out there in the distance and the smoke rising from the volcano, and the you know day or night, in the nighttime there's this dull glow across the night sky from the rumbling volcano, and during the day it's just this constant stream of smoke, and then that's it. And then he goes to the island and he has to go through trials and shit. Done. I just solved the whole story.
There you go.
Um,
It's a good story arc.
so we need.
We need some more running back and forths before he goes to the island.
Well, that's the thing I was thinking about when I was going through the Quest for Glory 6 playthrough today. The first 30 minutes of the game, there was only 15 scenes.
Sure.
And it was literally back and forth, 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 back and
It's
forth, back and
quests.
forth, doing quests and reading narrative and solving puzzles and figuring out what I need to give to this guy and what do I need to do here. So, that city environment is going to be, and I'm assuming we go with the blacksmith idea. It could be something. I like the blacksmith idea because it gives him the adventures a reason, but it could be maybe he's maybe he's this could be the other option, other route. He could be the the he works at the tavern. Maybe
Hmm.
that's his job is he works at the tavern and
He's a
he
busboy.
sweeps the
Everything
floor. Yeah,
takes.
he sweeps floors, cleans tables, mops up spills, and his mom runs the tavern. This is another option. Mom runs the tavern, and adventurers come in, but it's the same story. And a group of adventurers come in. He you know plays with their equipment or something and sees. So either one of those backgrounds work. It might be easier to do the tavern because I was thinking if we did a forge, you might have to worry about animation sequences for like hammer and smithing and all this other stuff. I don't know how we do that.
Sure. Depends on, yeah. So either one of those, I'm down with.
I think I like the blacksmith option
The blacksmith
better.
option makes more sense because he's like polishing the sword,
Yeah, yeah,
doesn't see anybody. He's just like,
yeah.
"Ah."
So okay, let's say that. So we need a blacksmith interior, a blacksmith exterior on a street. So that
Mhm.
way we've got, if the blacksmith is here in the foreground and then the street goes off into the distance, and then he walks down to the end of the street and it transitions into the next scene, which could be where the bookstore is, and then maybe one
Well,
more
that could
street
realistically, depending on how big we made the scene, that could all be in one scene. The exterior forge, or the exterior blacksmith,
exterior
the
of the.
exterior of the bookstore, exterior of the general store, the
If we
tavern's over
wanted to make
here.
it simple, we could do it all in one scene, just as like what they did with like we were
Right.
just
And
watching with
so you
King's
literally,
Quest.
you can run to the exteriors of all of those in the one scene, and then you enter them, and so then, so
And that would work because you could pull the perspective out a little bit, make it a slightly
yeah,
larger scene.
sure,
Maybe the street's 200 feet long or something,
sure.
and we could put all of our shops in one scene. We could have bookstore, blacksmith, tavern, general store, all there in one scene. All of the
Mhm.
exteriors in one scene, and
Mhm.
then you've got that. I like the idea of this. So that gets us started. You need a street
Mhm.
exterior with 4 buildings, and you need 4 interiors.
Mhm.
That's a couple months worth of work right there, probably. Um, there you
Yeah,
go.
there you go. Because that's literally one, two, three, four. That's five scenes plus everything within those scenes. Yeah, I mean that's a great start, I would think. That's a really good start. I like that a lot.
Okay, so that gives us the first
Because then
five
then
scenes.
because then past that we could do, obviously, somebody's gonna send him go
Well,
talk
he's
to
he's
so and
gonna have to go
so or
find the
whatever.
Adventurers Guild. So the Adventurers Guild is gonna be somewhere else in the city. Um,
Or is it
so
in a different town maybe? Or he's gotta
well,
travel through some wilderness.
probably easiest to keep it all in the same place.
It's true.
Um, but we could set it in the next town over and just have like 3 transition scenes.
And maybe he meets a wandering traveler that says something. I don't know. You never know.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that one out. But I like the idea that we have right now. We got 5 scenes to get us going.
Yep.
Um,
And that gives me plenty to chew on. That's it. I can start gray boxing that stuff, getting a feel for what size we want to make it, kind of layout we want.
right, because there's also that pack we've been looking at for the,
Absolutely.
and I don't know how that pack is going to incorporate into what you're building with the scene, because they got a bunch of their own little things that you can do with that tool
Hmm.
set, in terms of creating clickable doors and clickable
Hmm.
objects and stuff. So I don't know.
Hmm.
That's up to you. I don't know how we're going to incorporate that quite yet. But yeah, that gives us a good start with those 5 scenes. Then we know we're going to need the Adventurers Guild interior and an exterior. But for now, it's only the interior that we're worried about. Um, then we're going to need some type of a. Yeah, we just have to figure that one out because I was just thinking we don't know if he's going to need. Does he get a boat on the docks or does he come across a boat on an abandoned beach and he rows himself across in the abandoned boat? Like, how does he get to the island? Like, because
Right.
he's probably not going to be able
He's
to
probably,
pay.
he's gonna have to. You don't think he's gonna be able to pay somebody?
I think most of the locals, because you and I have already kind of briefly talked about this island, everybody just kind of
Uh,
avoids it because it
they're not
was,
gonna. Yeah, they're not gonna wanna.
yeah, and that's what makes him go, you know what? I'm an adventurer. I'm going to go do it. Now, I don't care
Yeah.
if everybody else is
He's
afraid.
gonna steal a boat.
Yeah, he's going to steal a boat. He has to steal a boat. Um, so where he steals the boat from, we have to figure out later.
The boat
Um,
shop, duh.
well, if we have a dock, and there's ships docked there, but maybe some fishing vessels as well, and a couple of small canoes. Maybe he robs a canoe from the boat. Because we could do this all in one town,
Hmm. Yeah,
and
you could
just
do
what
a town. You could do a town like right there at the base of the mountains or
that's what I was
whatever.
thinking. Is literally
Yeah.
right there. 'Cause I was thinking I was gonna do three towns. One, two at the base of the mountains on the edge of the lake, and then one on the south end, which I haven't done yet. So there would
Hmm.
be three other towns west of the one that I just added today, which is a major city. So there would be three other kind of harbor towns, but they're not cities per se, but they're, still populated areas with like 1,000 people or something. Um, so just we pick one of these. Probably need to. We know we need the exterior, and then we probably need. What would be interesting to have is like maybe two or three street transition scenes with nothing in them or something in them depending on time of day or night. And maybe he gets a quest where he's supposed to go meet this shady character to trade this trinket for a map. And the guy's only there at nighttime and he's in one of the city street transition scenes. So you have to go there at night and trade for the map. That would be an interesting thing to do. Um, could just be an individual. It could be one city street transition scene, and then the next scene over could be the Adventurers Guild. And what else? What else do we want? Do we need anything else? Um, a magic store?
Well, magic's
Mm,
outlawed.
that's true. Magic's outlawed. We don't need a magic
Well,
store.
we need a dock scene.
Yeah, but I'm thinking because the first scene is we need the exterior with the four buildings, and then we
Yep.
have the four exteriors. Then we need a street transition scene.
Yep.
That's six. Then the next scene is the Adventurers Guild, and is there anything else in that scene as an exterior? It's the
Yeah.
exterior. It's another street exterior with the entrance to the Adventurers Guild. And is there anything else in that exterior scene? Like, is there another building he can go into, or that he would need to go into for story purposes? I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Um, I suppose what you could do is just since we're gray boxing everything, we gray box that first that exterior scene with just the Adventurers Guild as the only building that you can enter, and then if we need to, we can put another enterable building there if we decide that we need another building for whatever purpose. Then we need another transition street going to the docks, and then the docks. How many scenes is that? 9 scenes? Hang on.
Eight.
Is it eight? So that four,
I think
five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. That's 10
10.
scenes.
Okay.
That's 10 scenes to get going. And then we have he gets to the beach on the other island, the ruins of the docks. That's 11. Then there's a transition scene into the ruins, and I don't want to necessarily brainstorm that part tonight because I think we got enough to get going with right now.
So yeah, so we've got like 10 or 12 scenes to get to the island, and then the island itself's gonna be 10 scenes or so.
Yeah, it could end up being more than that, but yeah, let's say
Sure.
another 10 to 15 scenes for the island. So 10 to 15 scenes for town, 10 to 15 scenes for the island. That gives us 30 scenes, 20 to 30 scenes.
And then we
Um,
figure out, because then if that doesn't take long enough, if we feel like it needs to be more, you can add more stuff in between
mhm,
what he does before he goes to the island
uh-huh. And
easily.
we could
Oh,
definitely
you
add
got to
more
go talk
steps.
to this dwarf guy down at the dwarf village. So you got to go down to the dwarven kingdom and talk to some dwarf for some reason.
All right, well, I feel like we've got um,
It's a good,
a
good.
good
That's a way, but
start,
start.
and that gets
I like the idea of the 5 zones right at the beginning. Just that's gonna be where you're learning the character.
moving around,
You're learning.
figuring out how the
Learning.
game plays.
Yep.
It's all within a centralized environment.
You won't get lost that easy.
Mm-mm. Yeah, because that's the other thing. Like if you watch, we don't need that for this game because it's the first one we're doing. But even I was watching, they did this in King's Quest 6. You enter the Minotaur's maze, and it's just these. It's like 20 different, and they reuse a lot of the hallways and stuff, but it's like 20 different scenes, and you have to figure out a way through the maze. And then the same thing when you get into the palace. It's a maze of corridors and stuff that you have to figure out, and it's like, nah, I don't want to do that in this game. Maybe next game, but this one I think we'll just keep it simple.
Well, I'm glad you like the dragon idea. I thought that was pretty cool. So I had that idea because we watched Sword in the Stone. And so I was
Yeah.
literally thinking the hero pulls it out of the stone. Okay, well that's already been done. What else could it be? And then I was like, a dragon. Okay, well, why does a dragon have a sword in it? And I was like, okay, that is cool. Freaking dead dragon corpse.
Yeah, and of
And
course,
and there's assets for that. I already looked. There is dragon corpses.
perfect. Yeah, so I mean, we're good to go. Now I just got to
Golden.
come up with, once we get
Now
to
we just
that point, we'll need to
now we
come up with
need
story and
money
lore.
to buy assets. Subscribe to Patreon.
Subscribe to Patreon, everybody. It'll help us out for sure. To those who are already supporting, thank you very much because you will be the people who help us buy the first assets that we're officially purchasing for this project, which will probably be happening next week or this weekend. I don't know if you'll need them by this weekend. Um, all right. Let me
Cool.
look at my
That's I that
notes.
I feel like that was a really productive brainstorming session.
Yep, and I'm gonna see. I didn't write anything down, but I was going through the. Uh, hang on, I gotta fit this to the screen. I can shut that map off again, I guess. Um, so I did some more um, basic lore the other day. I don't know if you've read it yet. In the
Don't
races
know if I
section,
read.
I wrote the dwarves and the brownies, and I
I
did.
think I've read those.
Okay,
Yes.
so those are already done, and then I got another. What's the post that's coming out tomorrow? Patreon. Because yesterday's post was the races overview. Next week is the dwarves and brownies for the Patreon subscribers. Posts scheduled. Tomorrow's post is story ideas rough notes, and we take them into. Uh, Let me look at this because I forget what I wrote. Oh, this is where I was talking. You and I were going over the. We hadn't even in this particular post we hadn't finalized if we were doing brownies or
Varies.
fairies yet, and we've definitely finalized brownies. And
Oh
this
yeah.
was talking about the basis for the start of the adventure, like Solo, the Star Wars movie, and the Star Wars Rebels. Um, so that's what that post is about. That's tomorrow's post. But I did some. I'm gonna be starting to do the background for the elves soon. We do need to not tonight because we're already 43 minutes in. So just this is pre-planning for the next episode that we do. Um, we need to finalize our history of the world and everything else because I really need to be able to. Because don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
we talked about this in the last episode. I've got enough work just
Sure.
fleshing out the races, like just fleshing out the history and the description of the brownies, the dwarves, the elves, and the humans, and the half elves, and everything else. I got enough work there to keep me busy for the rest of March. But I do need to, as quickly as possible, get the story idea of why is Magic banned, what's all that stuff going on, so that I can sit down with you and we can actually figure out the outline for the first book.
Yeah.
That way I can, once I have the outline for the first book, I can then finalize the, because we can very generically create an outline that says it's this main, and again, there's more than one main character, but it's this kid with these other four people, right? Or three people, or whatever it ends up being. We don't have to give them classes or anything else just yet. We just need to know that he's going to be with these people, and these are the events that are going to roughly take place. Once we know that, we can go back and say, okay, so it's going to be this kid. He is human, and he's going to be partnered with a dwarf, an elf, a brownie, and like two other humans, like six-person party. Um, and then once we know who are the races of the people that are in the party with him, we can come up with who those characters are. Are they independent adventurers who just have friendships? Are they Do they have relationships with each other? Like if you look at Dragonlance, Raceland and Caramon are brothers. And if you look at like the solo movie, and I haven't seen it enough times like you do, like you have, isn't the Woody Harrelson's character like in a relationship with
Yeah, it was his wife, the girl
yeah, the girl,
that
it's like his
blow
wife.
that gets blown up on the bridge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like his wife or something. So, and then if you look at Star Wars Rebels, they're just people who were brought together by similar situations and a shared cause, but they didn't have relationships with each other. So then we have to make a decision. Okay, do we want there to be interpersonal relationships between the people in this party, or are they just rebels without a cause and they're all a part of this band because they're fighting for this thing? So
Well,
we
it's
still
really easy to have two that are in a relationship because they're obviously the core of the
could be,
group.
yeah, yeah, it could be.
They've
So
hired these other two, and they're allowing you to come on or whatever. You know what I mean?
so that's going to be the next brainstorming session. Is we got to figure out the rest of the world history, and we really got to narrow down what exactly happened within the last, say, 50 years to cause magic to be banned. Because we got a bunch of good ideas, we just got to figure out which one we want to run with now. So unless we have any, I don't have anything else I want to add to tonight's brainstorming session. Do you?
No, I think that was awesome. That we
All right,
have a great starting point now. I know what I'm working on.
Chris. Now you've got work too.
That's right.
We're gonna need some concept art of cities,
And shops, interiors,
tiendas, calles de pueblo, unas muelles, some
busty,
docks.
a busty blacksmith chick who's the boss. I mean,
Do you want to come say hi in the video real quick? Just so that people don't think I'm talking in my imagination.
my imaginary wife.
She's on the couch. She's not feeling too good tonight, so she's relaxing on the couch watching Netflix. All right, so we got a good course of action. All right. Um, First and foremost, subscribe to this channel if you have not already done so, because we're doing lots of videos like this. There's longer form videos, which are the brainstorming sessions. I've got the world map videos, and then I've got the short videos, which are coming out a couple times a week in relation to the posts over on Patreon, which is going to be 5 to 10 minute long videos, briefly describing the post, giving folks a chance to get up to speed with what we're talking about in greater detail on the posts. And of course, don't forget, check out the Patreon below. Go over to the Patreon page, subscribe, pick up a subscription. There's lots of cool perks. You get access to all of the drafts of everything that we're doing, the drafts of the novel, the drafts of the outlines, all of the campaign modules, all the maps that I'm creating for the campaign. You get access to the campaign rule set as it's being created, all the drafts of that, the Google Docs for the novel, the rule set, the campaign modules. All that stuff is being done for everybody over on Patreon. And then, of course, we're doing these YouTube videos. And, of course, don't forget the daily updates on TikTok, which today's update was me working on the new mountains and everything else. And then today's update is Chris's latest iteration of the brownie homes, which she did yesterday, but that video is going out tomorrow. And then the video on tomorrow's what? Tomorrow's Thursday. The video
Hmm.
on Friday will be the speed run version of the world map video that I just did this morning. Um, So anyway, yeah, check out all the different links and everything else. Pick up a Patreon subscription. Follow along on TikTok. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you in the next episode, ladies and gentlemen. Adieu.